The White Sox have another double-digit losing streak and are officially on pace to be worse than the 1962 New York Mets. The sad thing is, with how poorly things are going right now, it's not going to be enough to spark the necessary changes outside of a few trades needed to turn this franchise around. I'll discuss why next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, make sure to turn on those notifications. So for the first time in the club's 124-year history, the White Sox have had now two double-digit losing streaks. The Sox lost 10-2 last night to the Texas Rangers, as their current losing streak has now hit 10 games. And there are four more defeats from matching their season high. And if I remember, it was also a franchise single-season high of 14. And obviously 5 wins away from then setting a new franchise mark. Or no, I believe it's tying the franchise mark. Again, all these losing streaks you just lose track of. But despite all this losing and looking inept, it's not going to spark the necessary changes on 35th and Shields to get this franchise out of being the worst run team in baseball and possibly all of sports. And I'll discuss that in the first segment. Then let's power rank the potential trade partners for some of the White Sox trade assets. However, Garrett Crochet might be staying, according to a report from the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal. And finally, it may still be really early in Brooks Baldwin's MLB career, but I'm not sure he's the solution at second base going forward, so I'll discuss that in the final segment. But this episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. All right, despite the Sox now having another double-digit losing streak, again, this is the first time that has ever happened in the franchise's 124-year history. Again, the White Sox have been around since 1900. And I just pointed to my banner for those watching on YouTube. 1900. A full century has gone by, and the White Sox have never had a season where they've had two double-digit losing streaks. But Pedro Grifol isn't getting fired. It's going to be business as usual for your Chicago White Sox. You know, sure, they'll probably trade Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. to get some desperately needed young impact bats. But being in the same company as the 62 Mets or the 2003 Tigers, considered the two worst teams ever in the 162-game era, that's not going to be enough for this franchise to get a wake-up call and realize, man, we have to change fundamentally on how we do things around here. You know, they're staring at being a team that will finish with the worst record in a 162-game era. Think about it. If they beat the Mets' 40-win record, that means 39 losses or less. In a sport where the old saying goes is you're guaranteed to win 60 and you're guaranteed to lose 60, it's what you do with the other 42. That does not apply to the Chicago White Sox. And it's not going to be enough to spark the changes for the White Sox to either start acting like a big market club or even a small market club that still finds ways to win. And that is the changes that needs to take place. The Sox must change the way they perceive themselves at 35th and Shields. Enough with acting like little brother or acting like you're inferior to the Chicago Cubs. Enough with whining about the lack of attendance. Enough with not giving out contracts worth over $100 million and not taking the risk when it comes to paying for pitching. You know, think about it. They're wanting to trade Garrett Crochet in part because they don't want to pay him what he wants to stay with this team for the rest of the decade. This team is certainly not going to pursue Juan Soto in free agency because this owner believes, you know, players should be paid like it's 1958 and that you can win more games with a roster full of David Ecksteins. Enough With when money is actually spent, it's spent poorly. Enough with poor leadership in the clubhouse. Enough with building rosters not suited to play well at guaranteed rate field. And certainly, this is not going to be enough to convince ownership to just cash in and sell. Now, firing Pedro must happen. And it's probably going to happen, though, at the end of the season when it should be happening right darn now. We should be seeing what Charlie Montoya can do. And if he's worth just being like, hey, you be the manager during the losing parts of this rebuild. But even if they do fire Pedro, do you think general manager Chris Getz is going to be so forward thinking that he's going to be able to hire or have the vision to hire a plus manager? You know, in the same vein as Pat Murphy with the Brewers or Stephen Vogt in Cleveland. You know, Vogt didn't have big league managing experience, but he was highly thought of as a player, as a catcher. And Murphy was a career college manager. And both are probably going to win the AL and NL Manager of the Year award. And do you feel the Sox will actually make a run at Terry Francona if he's recovered from his health issues and wants to return to managing, or Skip Schumacher? And do you think even if Skip Schumacher comes here, is he actually going to be the manager that we saw last year? Or is he going to be the bad manager that we're seeing this year? And if so, would these two guys even want to come to this place? Because the first part of the job is going to involve a lot of losing. And then do you even trust Getz to even say, hey, in my backyard, I got Sergio Santos? Because I think he's going to pluck from someone from his Royals tree. And I'm tired of this team acting like little brother with the Cubs. I'm tired of hearing the owner saying, well, they only built up a fan base because they got lucky when the team chose to stay on WGN and they built up a national brand. You know what else drew people to the Cubs? Sammy Sosa, who the Sox traded him to the Cubs. Remember that? Sox had Sammy Sosa. Now they had the thinner version of Sammy Sosa. The natural Sammy Sosa. That's all I'm going to say. But they had Kerry Wood. They had the curse of the Billy Goat. And they actually built up around Wrigley Field for places to go before and after the game. Those are the things the Sox should be doing even right darn now. You got parking lots instead around Guaranteed Rate Field. And I know people love tailgating, but maybe think, hey, let's develop that land. And that's what Jerry's doing with the Bulls. Just announced that with the Blackhawks. And the Bulls, they're going to pour in over $7 billion in development around the United Center. On the South Side, though, well, Jerry wants to leave the South Side because he thinks Bridgeport can't support him. And he wants the taxpayers to cover all but $200 million of his dream of building a new stadium on the 78 that is projected to cost around $1.9 billion. You know, Jerry needs help with that project because he doesn't have another wealthy family to split the costs with. He doesn't have the Blackhawks to help him out. But he's investing billions in the Bulls because that's his money cow. And also, that's where the family will continue to be a part of long after Jerry's gone. And that's why you want to be like, Jerry, just sell now. Sell the Sox now. Your partners are clearly not wealthy enough or not willing to help you build the Sox new stadium. And quite frankly, you haven't been a good owner of this franchise since 2011. And getting back to building something around the rate, just do it. Yes, people grumble about the lack of tailgating, but you're in the business of winning baseball games, and you need to maximize your revenue to get there. Stop acting like, you know, and I know that there's places on 33rd Street that you can go to. That's a couple blocks away. You know, think about what the Cubs have built around Wrigley Field. Stop acting like you can't be a big market club because you can't draw well. You don't draw well because you don't act like a big market club. You don't have money players to go out and watch. And you've never done a great job of breaking the stereotype of the neighborhood being rough around Guaranteed Rate Field. And it doesn't help that the owner, you know, in last year's that shooting at the stadium, trying to say someone got shot at the stadium from a magic bullet flying outside the stadium because the owner doesn't want to admit that his rumored perceived ownership of the security firm at the park broke down. And trust me, on game day, there's plenty of security. I've never gone to a Sox game and not felt safe. And trust me, my dad and I were dropped off in game 1 of the 1993 playoffs, like 13 or 14 blocks away, because that's how you could not get close to Guaranteed Rate, to Comiskey Park at the time. And everyone in the neighborhood was celebrating. People were out having barbecues. I didn't feel unsafe. I think that neighborhood gets a bad rap. And the biggest thing that needs to change is the roster construction and the misapplication of limited financial resources. If the Sox want to act like a small market club, then fine, act like one, but that means every dollar you spend has to be spent wisely with a true return on the investment. It also means spending on the analytics and development resources needed. And it sounds like the White Sox are not really doing that. Now, they have a forward-thinking pitching guru in Brian Bannister, and it sounds like he's using the right technology resources to help the team develop pitching. And he's at least advocating toward acquiring pitchers to fit the ballpark in which they'll pitch in 81 games a year. But it doesn't sound like they have enough resources for the hitting and the additional stuff you need to keep identifying talent to draft and then keep developing them. So invest in that. And then that way, if you don't want to pay $100 million for a player, you can at least have a lot of good players in their prime years on manageable salaries. Or finally say, screw it. We're going for a superstar in free agency. Here's $700 million for Juan Soto, who's a draw at the gate, a generational talent, and a clear sign to any lawmaker and taxpayer that, hey, you're willing to spend money. So maybe consider handing over that check for a new stadium. And instead of signing very flawed free agents to big contracts, how about do what the Brewers do or the Rays do? Find vets on shorter, cheaper deals that can fit what you need to construct a very effective roster. And you want to have a consistent runner at the rate? I can tell you, you don't need to be a genius. You need to have 5 to 6 power bats who can draw walks, 3 to 4 guys with speed on the base pass who can also have high on base percentages. You need a shortstop who can be one of those two but can also field. Same with center field. And you need a catcher who needs to be a power bat who can throw out runners and call a game. And as Brian Bannister has pointed out, you need power lefties and right-handers with pitchers that have great spin rates and can sink to get ground balls. Velocity is optional on those right-handed arms. That's what the 2005 team did. And the only reason why they couldn't sustain it was they couldn't find a long-term solution at shortstop. They traded away Aaron Rowan, and his replacement never developed, and they had some injuries to guys like Joe Creedy. But nope, this being bad will just give more talk about how the team's working hard. We're working on development, going through the ups and downs, but no big thinking, no forward thinking, except for with Brian Bannister. Well, let's power rank the teams reportedly interested in Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert Jr., and Erick Fedde, along with the latest update on the Crochet trade rumors next on Locked On White Sox. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trade Master program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive advantage on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And the White Sox might be terrible, but they're still playing Major League Baseball, and their slogan is true. It's always better at the ballpark. The hot dogs just taste better, and you can still have a great time despite your beloved team being this bad. And Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And if Garrett Crochet is not traded before the 28th, that might be his final start at home in a White Sox uniform, so you might want to use Game Time to check out what could be his final start with the team before that July 30th trade deadline. You also want to check out rookie pitcher Drew Thorpe. You got 2 chances coming up tomorrow against Seattle or on July 31st against the Royals. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you the 110% of the difference. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox wrap up a 4-game series with the Texas Rangers today. First pitch is at 1:35 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. Just always ask that you make me your first listen. Well, in my heart, as I've said, I'm in the belief that the Sox are motivated to trade Garrett Crochet. Do it in the offseason after you've made one more run at an extension. And I said yesterday, my mind and gut says trade Crochet now because you need young position players with the potential to be an impact and even more importantly, foundational bat. But it sounds like the Sox might be going with the offseason plan, according to the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal, and I'll just discuss that in a second. And also, just because the Sox have a greater need to cash out on Crochet, Luis Robert Jr., and Erick Fedde, doesn't mean they should just trade them to anyone. It's worth power ranking all the potential trade partners. So first, here's what Ken Rosenthal had to say in The Athletic in case you stopped subscribing to them after, they decided the Sox were not worth covering on a daily basis and laid off James Fegan, who's now doing great work at SoxMachine.com. Check out SoxMachine.com and also their podcast. As Ken Rosenthal wrote for The Athletic, quote, some in the industry, end quote, expect the White Sox to hold the coveted left-hander until the winter. Quote, believing that an even greater number of buyers will have emerged in the offseason and that his value is greater in his additional 2 years of club control than in 2024, end quote. Look, I think that logic is sound as he finishes out the season uninjured and with good numbers. Now you can basically trade Crochet like you did with Dylan Cease. Plus, you can give yourself one more shot, one more chance to see what Crochet's camp thinks in terms of a number to keep him through the rest of the decade. And again, with hardly any payroll committed after this season, maybe you can pay that price. I doubt it, and that's another thing I'm getting tired of. I'm getting tired of, the Sox just keep drafting guys and actually developing, left-handed pitchers and then just trading them because they don't want to pay them. But that historic losing is not going to change anything. But again, you can max the return on them in the offseason, much like you did with Dylan Cease. So you don't have to trade Garrett Crochet right now. It's ideal, but, with that, if he can get through the season uninjured and with good numbers like he's posting right now, even if he's going 4 innings, you've at least taken away the, Chris, what other teams could say, Chris, I might only be able to use him as a high leverage reliever, so I can't give you the full value because I know he's important to you, but I can't give you that 125, 150% return. Now guests could be on the line in the offseason and say, look, he pitched a full season. He did 150 innings or 170. Arm's fine. Arm's great. I want your top 2, I want your top 3 prospects, for example. Just saying. Now let's get to power ranking the trade partners for Crochet. Clearly, the Orioles should be number 1 with all the hitting prospects they have. Colby Mayo, he is the dream. Also, I'm actually seeing, when I've read reports now about the Orioles potentially being interested, writers aren't saying it, but they're putting in the list. Jackson Holliday, he's a top prospect in baseball. And the Orioles have guys to be impact bats besides Mayo and Holliday. However, they always play the long game with their prospects. They don't part with their hitting prospects. Heston Kjerstad, he should have been traded last year, but they know he's going to replace Anthony Santander. And they also, I think they understand that October is variance. It's random. So just keep building for spins at the wheel. So that's why I'm actually going to put them number 2. Yes, I'm going to put them number 2. The Phillies would be my number 1 trade partner because they have Dave Dombrowski running the team, and he trades his prospects. I discussed it on yesterday's show. And the Phillies have hitting prospects that have the potential to be very good. So that's my number 1. Orioles number 2. The Dodgers would be number 3 as they have 2 top prospects that are bats, but they're more deep in their pitching. although you can never have enough pitching, but the Dodgers historically have been a good trade partner with the Sox. Number 4, the Yankees, because they can dangle Spencer Jones, who has a ton of potential despite a down year at Double-A. And they have some other hitting prospects that are intriguing. Pitcher Chase Hampton, he could be another Drew Thorpe. So, but the problem is Jones has way too many strikeouts. And for his numbers and to be acting like he's a sacred cow, you kind of get leery. And the Yankees have never been the best trade partner with the Sox. The Padres, I think I saw a tweet out there, though, in the social media world that they've pulled out of the sweepstakes, but they would be number 5. They have some talented hitting prospects, but they are years away. And ideally in this division, you should still aim to getting guys who can be with the big league club contributing next season or early 2026, so you can be ready to compete by 2026 or 2027. Luis Robert Jr., the only 2 teams I'm trading him to is the Mariners, as again, they also have great hitting prospects and they seem to be a fit, and the Phillies. I wouldn't be opposed to the Dodgers, but again, I think the Mariners and the Phillies are better fits. Although I haven't really seen the Phillies rumored with Robert since last month. Erick Fedde, I'm going to rank the Brewers number 1A. I know Jesse Rogers is a big ESPN's Jesse Rogers is a big proponent of Fedde going to the Brewers. So I'd put Brewers 1A with all their hitting prospects. Guardians 1B. They have hitting prospects too. Then the Astros, since they at least have a hitting prospect in the top 100, and then the Cardinals. Well, the Sox did call up a hitting prospect to see if he can play second base. And well, Brooks Baldwin might find a level where he can't hit at. I'll discuss that. Even if it's early in his career, he might be another Lenine Sosa next on Locked On White Sox. And with summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. On Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. The Sox and the San Francisco Giants, they're not exactly rivals, but they will be foes next month when Chicago travels there in mid-August. Why not take a trip out to San Francisco, check out Fisherman's Wharf, Alcatraz, the Golden Gate Bridge, get some excellent food at Chinatown, and really there's just excellent food everywhere in San Francisco. And then taking a game in that amazing ballpark. Have you always wanted to see historic Fenway Park? I know I have. Sox will be in Boston in September. Use Booking.com to find a place to lay your head if you want to make those trips. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. Get on the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash with the summer games on PrizePicks. With PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. And PrizePicks has some good more or less to choose from for today's game. Luis Robert Jr., he went yard yesterday. They have a more or less on him going yard again at 0.5. They also have him stealing a base at 0.5. Paul DeYoung and Corey Lee, if they're in the lineup, the more or less on them getting on base is 0.5, and Jonathan Cannon's more or less on strikeouts is 3.5. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And the White Sox wrap up a 4-game series with the Texas Rangers today. First pitch is at 1:35 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. Thank you for sticking with me. Shout out to all you everydayers. Love you, loyal listeners. Love your comments on the YouTube page. You know, we're getting through this together, folks. Hopefully 2025 and 2026 or 2027 and the rest of the existence of the Chicago White Sox is not as bad as it is right now. Well, it's been 20 at-bats into Brooks Baldwin's big league career, but he looks overmatched in the MLB. He earned a promotion after hitting 324 between Double-A and Triple-A. And to be fair, he got off to a slow start to his professional career in general in 2022. He hit 219 between rookie ball and low A. And then at Kannapolis in 2023, he hit 245 before he went to high A. And then he started raking. So he's been hitting ever since. But right now, he is 2 for 20 with 1 walk and 8 strikeouts to start his career. And he just looks overpowered by MLB pitching. And why does this matter? Well, I like this tweet from Patrick Nolan. He was formerly of SoxMachine.com. This is at Sox, MACH_P Knowles. Just once, I want a hashtag White Sox hitter to come up to the major leagues and instantly get it and become a fixture for the next 6 to 7 years. This might seem like a ridiculous expectation, except that every other organization has this happen from time to time, and it's completely normal. That's why I'm discussing it. Because that's right. It just seems like lately when the White Sox have a prospect come up, there's just this huge struggle, especially hitting, not pitching. I mean, Drew Thorpe, he looks the part. Jonathan Cannon is showing promise. But this pitch, but the hitting, it's just like, my gosh, it's laborious. Right now, Baldwin has an exit velo average, according to Baseball Savant. It's 85.9 miles per hour. The average MLB velo, like what's considered to be a good average velo, is 89. He is a minus 54 WRC plus. Now, things can change in an instant. The light can finally turn on. But he just strikes me as a left-handed version of Lenyn Sosa, Danny Mendick, and Zach Remillard. Just utility guys that the Sox system seems to produce. Just guys. And it's sad because second base has been a hole in the Sox lineup since 2002 when the Sox traded away Ray Durham. I mean, 22 years they've been looking for a franchise second baseman. And I have to admit that I'm just disappointed because I did have higher hopes. I was hoping he would just come in and continue to hit because he's been hitting great this year. Watched him at Double-A, Birmingham Barons when I've checked out games. Guy hits. I was at least hoping that he would just come in and even be like Brian Ramos. Brian Ramos did that, even though it was singles. And I get baseball was going to come for Baldwin, eventually like it does with every rookie. And it did it to Ramos. I was just hoping it'd be after a few hits. But baseball, it seems like, has already claimed Baldwin. And I'm not sure he can adjust back. Still willing to be patient because I'd rather see him try. I'm still willing to give him another 80 at-bats because it's better than watching Braden Shoemake and Lenyn Sosa. Maybe that's why I'm disappointed because, again, he's carrying on this year's tradition of being a bad hitter in the infield. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? And you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow to go over the Sox series against the Rangers, get you ready for the Sox series against the Mariners. Feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding why no fundamental changes will happen despite all this historic losing, the recent Crochet trade rumor, power ranking the trade partners for Sox trade assets, and Brooks Baldwin's major struggles to his big league career. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dubb, or at Locked On Sox, or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow.